G'day Bomber fans, I hope you're all doing okay. That was genuinely one of my least favourite games I've ever watched or been at. I can't remember a time where I've been more disappointed and embarrassed as a fan, if I'm being honest, even including those games last year, the one against GWS. This time around there was hope, there was promise, there was a lot of talk from the club. You felt a shift. You had players coming out midweek and saying we don't want to be walkovers, and you actually felt that as fans, and then those very same players served that up. There was a putrid performance. It's weekends like this that make me really wonder why I let this sport dictate my happiness so much. I can think of a million things that I would have preferred to have been doing with my time than have been sat there in quality seats, free of cost, watching the team I love at one of the most beautiful stadiums in the world. But I was sat there downing Suntories, wishing I was somewhere else. Leave your votes in the comments if you can find any. Let's get into what promises to be a very unenjoyable review. Alrighty, recap starting with the first quarter, which was genuinely pretty awesome. We were hot, we were showing real grit and pressure, we had them backtracking, we had the game on our terms a bit, we trailed, but the signs were awesome. I was bullish after that first term, I think we all were. If you guys want to stay happy, I'd probably turn off this video now because from here it gets downhill. The second term was a mess. Port found their feet, they showed us up, started really dominating in the centre, showed us what a good midfield looks like. They kicked 6 goals, we kicked 1. It was really not even too bad until about 5 or 10 minutes to go in the quarter when they just started piling them on. I thought up until that stage we were handling it okay, and that's when I had to go get Suntory number 1. After half time we managed to slow down the score and we couldn't really get anything going the other way. It was a really frustrating quarter and pretty boring for neutrals. I think many watching probably turned off at that stage, not even Essendon fans, just neutrals. I also at that stage made the genius play of double parking with the Suntories just so I didn't have to make the long walk back to the bar again and have to deal with the cocky Port fans who were giving me crap all night. The fourth term was a disaster, 4 goals to a point, horrendous viewing, really embarrassing. It's all a bit of a blur, no one was happy, the cheer squad was not the vibe, and really, I got to shout out the guys running it. I spoke to a couple of them who run the show and saw a few others who made the trip down from Melbourne. That to me is passion. The guys paying money for flights, accommodation, tickets, everything really. Paying money to see the boys get belted on the big stage, staying vocal throughout. The fans really deserve a bit of appreciation for that. Well done to everyone involved in the cheer squad, and cheers for letting me in for the week. Thank you to the SA Bombers group as well. I was kind of sat there, arms crossed, silently downing my Suntories in frustration, but those vocal fans who were cheering while 60 odd points down, they're the real MVPs from the weekend. Well done to you guys. Alrighty, so how did we lose this game of footy? For starters, we were shown what a good midfield looks like. We got the better of St Kilda and Hawthorn and a Sydney team missing a host of key players there, and I think then we all got a bit ahead of ourselves, thinking we had the engine room to lead us up the ladder and challenge with really good teams. But the minute we go up against a midfield like Port Adelaide, we crumble. Port smashed us in the guts. We praised ourselves on centre clearances. We were the best ranked in the comp, I believe, up until this game, and then we went out and had 3 times less than Port Adelaide. They destroyed us. It was horrible to watch. There is nothing worse than having goal after goal scored from centre bounces, because you know once the 6-6-6 sets up again, they're just going to get control again. Connor Rosie was killing us. Zach Butters was killing us. Horn Francis. They were even missing players and still managed to destroy us. The amount of tackles Rosie broke, he just ran through us. It was horrible to watch. It was embarrassing. Our midfield was terrible when it mattered most. 19 centre clearances to 6. Individual players for them had more centre clearances than our whole team. Credit to some guys for trying, but we just looked second rate. It isn't why we lost the game, but it's what helped them get away from us initially in conversion, and also just efficiency around the ground as well. There was a stage during the second quarter when they started to get their lead where we were equal or close to them on inside 50s, nearly equal on scoring shots, but they had a lead. They just looked more dangerous going forward, partly because of exceptional ball use, partly because we were horrible with ball in hand. We were down about 15% for disposal efficiency inside 50, but I thought it was more than that on by eye test. We had much more of the footy as well, not under pressure, more uncontested footy, but they showed us up. They were happy with us chipping nowhere, going nowhere with the ball, waiting for those long dump kicks that Radaglia or Alia or even Houston ate up, and then they just carved us up the other way. There was no class anywhere on the field, especially in the midfield. Everywhere we played, though, it was just boys against men, and not necessarily from a physical viewpoint, because I think there were times where we had a crack, but just mentality, maturity, they were miles ahead of us. Simply put, we looked out of touch. The Essendon edge talk is kind of laughable looking back on it. We beat the Hawks and Saints, and we're going on about grit, but we crumbled against proper good footy teams. There's a clear distance between us and the better teams. We let the Swans kick over 130. We let Port pile on 17 goals. We are easy to score against, and unfortunately on Friday we also struggled to score. But I think think the figures we should be looking at are the goals conceded and not the margin. That's the worry for me. We have some really tough games coming up, and I doubt we're going to be a solid team, or a team defence in them. Whether it's transitional play or midfield dominance, we can't really defend it. We may be fun at our best and energetic when in a close game, but when things go against us badly, we turn over and just allow the opposition to have a glorified training drill. There was an edge to the St Kilda game, don't get me wrong, but there is nothing near it to how we played against Port. Any team can show edge when the game is on the line. It's how you respond to potential big losses that I look at, and we were way too content to let that game end. If you're down by 10 goals, you shouldn't want the siren to go as a player. You should be doing all you can to reduce that margin and win back credibility, but we weren't prepared to do that. That's what sets us apart from the best teams. You don't see top teams like Melbourne get smashed like that because they refuse to let it happen. We're the opposite. I talked about our ruck setup being confusing last weekend after our win, and it's even more confusing after this loss. I just don't know how this is going to work. We have two good rucks getting soundly beaten by Ivan Soldo. Nothing against Soldo, and nothing against Goldie or Draper, although Draper did have a down night. But I just don't think they fit that well together. They were both borderline liabilities at time on Fridays. I liked our dual ruck setup with Phillips last year. I thought that worked, but we have regressed and we are not getting the best out of these two players. Goldstein was incredible in round one. He had over 40 hitouts. He had 20 on Friday though. Half the amount he had in round one. Less than Soldo. Draper had 14. Soldo had 12 hitouts to advantage. Our rucks combined for 5. I don't think you can look at me and say that our rucks are working if they're getting soundly beaten by Ivan Soldo. What is the point of having one of the best stoppage rucks in the team if you only use them for about half the game? And around the ground, Soldo had 7 effective disposals. Our rucks combined for 9. And this, it isn't Max Gawn or Luke Jackson. It's Ivan Soldo. He should not be playing this well against two ruckmen of Draper and Goldstein's quality. I just don't see how they can fit in the same team against teams like Port. They weren't mobile enough to be competing with the intercepting defenders. They weren't good enough in the ruck to be competing with Soldo. They were both 2-metre men floating around through the game. There was no plan B either. We pretty much had one less player on the field because of them. And there has to be serious question marks now around how this setup works. I had doubts in our wins. I have even more now. I hope we see this addressed throughout the week somehow. But it wasn't just them. We had way too many players float through this game. Jai Menzies has to be dropped. I would be beyond shocked if he plays against the Dogs. There is no reason to include him in the team right now. He's just not it. He needs a spell in the VFL. Draper and Goldstein, like I said, really didn't have much say on the game at all. Hobbs tried, but didn't really make a difference. Some key players were worn down. Parrish struggled a lot to get back to his best. Setterfield as well. Nick Cox and Jake Kelly were really frustrating, but at least tried at times. Mason Redmond, this is a guy that we expect to really show up each week, but he isn't. I could go on. I don't want to heap blame on individuals because losses like this don't stem from one or two players. It's a team-wide plague of mediocrity, and it's not even us not being good enough. We showed that we could keep up in that first term, and that win against St Kilda, competitiveness against Sydney, I just don't know what happened. We crumbled. You just hate to see it. And just when you think things can't get much worse, we have injury news to talk about. Ridley's going to miss more time. He had quad-related issues. That news broke before the game. We won't see him back against the Dogs like we thought. Archie Perkins left the ground early with a hamstring issue. He was playing well as well, so that hurts. And I think there are fitness or confident issues with a few of the guys I mentioned before. Parrish, Setterfield. They have not been good since returning. Parrish in particular has been incredibly disappointing. There's heaps to worry about from this game. Personnel, structure, stability, but right now the most worrying of the lot has to be availability. Soft tissue injuries seem to be creeping back after a promising preseason. Parrish, Ridley, Perkins, Reed, many more that I can't really be stuffed thinking about. It's not really an excuse. It's more of an issue with the club as a whole. I don't think we are as bad on the injury front as other teams. We shouldn't be using it as an excuse for these losses at all. I'd hate to see you guys do that in the comments. But it's not ideal constantly having guys missing these 2 to 3 week blocks all the time. I was really excited for this weekend and the tests that would come with it, and gather round as a whole being back in my state, but it was just a really woeful night, and it's been a woeful weekend. I had a long time to think about this game. I walked through Rundle Mall after. I got Hungry Jacks. It tasted like crap, and that's when you know you're having a bad night, when the HJs is horrid, but it doesn't ruin your mood. It was on par with the rest of the night. I feel bad for anyone who made the trip over and had to watch that. I was lucky enough to go in for free in my home state, and I was regretting going. So for those who actually spent money and valuable time on it, I applaud you. You deserve better than what you got. And even those watching from home, that was just a deplorable effort. We all really deserve better as fans. I could name the players that had a red hot crack on one hand, I reckon, and they will be in my votes, but that's just not good enough. I'm sick of it. We were showing up by a better team. We need to lift if we want this year to mean anything, because right now I'm worried it's wasted already and we're 4 rounds in. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic. I know we are still 2 wins from 2 games. We're in touch with the 8, which is better than what many thought we would be at this stage, and I reckon we probably will bounce back and show real hunger against the Dogs, but a result like this is just not what the club should stand for, and we've been very vocal about it throughout the opening stages of this season. After all this talk about the Essendon edge, I want someone to show me edge in that game. Friday night, Footy World watching, we serve up that rubbish. That's a bottom four performance. I almost wish we got done by more so we could actually face the music in a big way. This one hurts more than that GWS game last year for me. It came with promise, there was belief, and we were hopeless. Let's just get on to the votes. 1 vote to Gresham, who was lively up forward. He kicked most of our goals. 2 to Caldwell. I wasn't going to give any midfielders any votes after that dismal display, but I thought he had a red-hot crack all night. 7 or 8 tackles, really energetic in contests, and 3 votes to Mackay. I was watching him closely in that last term because the ball was flying towards him non-stop. He had 13 contested one-on-ones. That is a ridiculous number. To put that into perspective, when I checked the stats on Friday night after the game, only 5 players had that amount for the season so far. 13 in a game is nuts. He was under immense pressure all night, non-stop. The ball was coming his way, and he managed to stand tall. He lost a few one-on-ones, but 14 intercept possessions. He kept Dixon goalless. If that was BZT last year, I think we lose by 100 or more. So those are my votes. My role player of the match is Harry Jones. I think he had a crack. He didn't always pay off, but he was really competing in the air. The entries were horrid. He had no chance with some of the service, but he was our most likely key forward in a game where we didn't really have much going for us. Anyone unlucky to miss out? Merritt, probably. He misses out because of our lofty expectations of him. He tried all night, but I would feel weird about having multiple midfielders in the votes after the display. And I think, who am I missing? Dersma was another one. But that's about it, I'd say. That is that. Review done. I'm keen to forget about this game. I'm just annoyed. I'm frustrated. I'm tired of this. I thought we were past this stage as a club, but it seems we've regressed back to how we were late last year. I hope things change. A small part of me doesn't want it to change, so we really have a big reason to fix whatever's gone wrong with this club, because it's just been going on for too long. These dismal performances on the big stage. You can't even get keen for Friday night footy anymore because you just know it's going to come with all this scrutiny that is deserved. In fact, let's just forget about this win. Let's loss. I hope we won. Let's forget about this loss. Let's look forward to the game against the Dogs. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.